The state of Illinois has a new research project for cannabis. The state recently launched the Cannabis Research Institute.
Capitol Bureau Chief Max Cotton explains the new CRI and its impact.
What we're announcing, of course, and talking about is the advancement of scientific inquiry and research and lifting up Illinois as a national leader in a relatively new cannabis industry.
Illinois is taking another step to make the state a cannabis leader. The state is partnering with the city of Chicago to create the Cannabis Research Institute. The University of Illinois Discovery Partners Institute will house the CRI.
The goal of this event is to establish and begin establishing CRI as a trusted source of unbiased, factually accurate information research into crop management, health, medicinal effects, and social equity impact.
The governor's office says the CRI will provide research and data on the scientific and socioeconomic impacts of cannabis production and usage. Pritzker says the CRI will also help change the conversation about cannabis. Though the state officially legalized recreational marijuana at the start of 2020, it remains illegal in 26 states as well as under federal law.
So we'd need to change the public perception around cannabis, fight back against misinformation, bring more scientific study into the industry, and have honest, productive conversations about the opportunities associated with legalization.
He says the CRI will use research and data collection to help shape the future of cannabis policy, particularly with consumer protection, economic and community development, and equity. In Springfield, Max Cotton, WGEM News.